Hello, listeners. I'm Timstradamus, and welcome back to another Friday. With me, as always, is my talented and beautiful co-hostess, Voyse.
Good morning, Timstradamus, and welcome to all our listeners. Timstradamus, how does Ebenezer Scrooge search the internet?
He doesn't. He says humbug and unplugs his router.
Too much money?
Yeah.
It's actually through Scroogle.
Scroogle. I feel that for all new listeners, Voyse and I enjoy reading and talking about stories from the internet that are interesting, funny, and dramatic. Because of our love of stories, we've come together and created this channel to share with you those experiences.
And hopefully give you some food for thought.
Well, Voyse, what have you created today?
Well, Timstradamus, I have brewed for you, I think exceptional tea in my opinion. It's got a little bit of green tea, but I've added some pineapple, elderberries, raspberries, blackberries, and a little bit of lemon peel for a citrusy kick.
Oh man, that is fantastic.
Our fridge is probably tired of all the jars of dried fruits I have in it.
It's fantastic, seriously. That is 10 humbugs out of 10.
Yes.
It's going to be a good Christmas.
Well, while you go ahead and enjoy your brew, why don't we go ahead and delve into these stories? For any listeners wanting to follow along, all story links are in the description below. For our first story. Am I the a-hole for telling my coworker she'd be more reactive if she dressed normally? I, male 34, have a coworker, Orla, female 32. We work in academics and our dress code is extremely lax. I haven't worked there long. I recently joined the team. Anyway, Orla dresses weird. Think that witchy, vampire, goth weird with float skirts and combat boots, etc. Don't get me wrong, Orla is a very attractive woman. Tall, thin, with beautiful face, but her style is really off-putting. I was invited to join my coworkers for a drink on Friday. They sometimes go to an OU after work. I accepts. Everyone had a couple of drinks, so don't judge me. I got a bit tipsy, and while outside having a cigarette, I've talked to Orla and told her she's a really pretty girl, but she's ruining it with the way she dresses and she scares men off. She laughed at me, called me an a-hole, and went to join other people. It was really rude. When I got back, they were all whispering, but no one said anything. Today, I found out they all think I was out of line and huge a-hole because a workmate, Tom, told me they all bitched about me on the group chat. Turns out I'm not yet a member because I was too new. They all think I was the a-hole, and I genuinely can't see how. I was only honest and tried to give her an advice. I mean, I'd ask her out, but I'd be ashamed to be seen with her on public, and I'm sure many men would too. She's too old to be playing dress up. But now I worry I fucked up. And if I was the a-hole, I might have to make amends as I can't get sacked again. Am I the a-hole for telling the truth?
Because I can't get sacked again. So he's done this type of behavior before.
It would seem so.
And he knows better. This story is the chef's kiss to start off our Friday with. So he says he has a work colleague that is attractive outside of the clothes she wears. He thinks she's too old to wear them. And I guess after a work day, they all go out for drinks and he gets the liquid courage to be the complete a-hole that he actually is and tells her to her face that the things she chooses to wear drives men away from her. And he goes on to later tell us that she's too old to be playing dress up. You have a lot of really bad opinions.
Negative so many brownie points.
You know, the fun part about this is he thinks that the way she reacted to his truth, right, by calling him an a-hole and then leaving the situation, was the rude part of what happened that day. Like, she was so rude to have done that to me. No, she actually treated that with a lot more class than most people would have. So you're lucky that, I think her name is Orla?
Correct.
Interesting name.
I love it.
You're lucky that she handled it with more class than it sounds like you have in your entire body. I know you probably didn't learn anything from what people are about to tell you in the comments section because it sounds like you have a already very dug in viewpoint of life. In my opinion, OP, you are definitely an a-hole.
Well, the comments section of Reddit definitely went a little bit haywire.
I
And
bet they were brutal.
All of them definitely said that our OP is the a-hole. In fact, aside from just, very simply putting it, calling him sexist and judgmental, a lot of them picked up on the sacked again part and said, so wait, you haven't learned the first time that this happened? I'll keep it as that.
Yeah.
Well, let's go on to our next story and see what you think about this one. Am I the a-hole for being upset at his inconsideration? My boyfriend and I have already slept with each other. Yesterday was his first time staying over. I saw he got dressed in briefs after showing instead of boxer briefs. I asked why he's wearing briefs when he usually wears boxer briefs. He said briefs are way more comfortable to him because it gives better support. I said briefs are usually worn by older men or younger boys, so it's a big turnoff to me. He figured briefs might be a big turnoff, which is why he always wore boxer briefs for the bedroom, but they make his balls sore after wearing them for too long. I said he needs a better pair, but he tried many pairs and none gave the same support as briefs. I told him it doesn't feel good knowing he's wearing briefs. They remind me of my dad who wears briefs. He said I'm being unreasonable because the only time I'll see his underwear is in bed. He'll be in sweatpants at home or jeans outside, so it shouldn't matter if I know he's wearing briefs underneath those clothes. I told him I can't help it. Briefs are extremely unattractive to me. Knowing he's with me in unattractive underwear makes my libido drop. He got annoyed and said the most he's compromising is wearing boxer briefs in bed when he's wearing briefs when not sleeping with each other. I feel upset because he's not being considerate of how I feel. Am I the a-hole?
What are you doing? You followed the last story up with this one? Lady, he's telling you his balls are sore.
The chafing is real.
And she's like, at the end of it, the one thing that bothers me the most is she's saying he's not being considerate of the way I feel. He's physically in pain. Who's more in the wrong, your libido, or are you actually telling your boyfriend that it doesn't matter how he physically feels to make you more attracted to him? I'm sorry, if it was a piece of clothing that is the difference between you feeling a certain way for someone or not, should you be with that person? Because that's an interesting take. Is like, I only like them because of what they're wearing. And if they wear this certain thing, I'm repulsed completely by the person they are.
I think it's very shallow.
The comfort of someone matters. Well, it should anyway.
I think I'm more shocked that she thinks of her father when she sees his underwear. That makes me uncomfortable.
For your boyfriend's sake, I hope you learned from people's perspective on this. Try putting other people's comfort and well-being before your so-called libido. But yes, in my honest opinion, you are definitely the a-hole. Consider the balls.
Free the balls. Or I guess cup them. I'm not sure how that works. Well, let me go ahead and put out there that the consensus is that our OP is definitely the a-hole. In fact, let me read to you 2 comments from the comment section that I think really kind of put it into perspective and made me smile a little. The first one said, "You're the a-hole. Let's flip it around. Let him chastise you for something you wear, something that is comfortable to you. Are you going to change it for him? Would you be comfortable with him telling you how deeply unattractive it is and how inconsiderate you are for wearing such a thing like the hideous, ugly, elderly person you're making him out to be?"
That's very true.
And then the next comment goes, "I like thongs, but I would never make my wife wear something she don't like. But question, is he more endowed / larger sack man? If so, boxers do get uncomfortable. Just imagine your vag hanging between your legs, rubbing, bouncing, sitting on it. Wouldn't you rather be comfortable when you try to relax, rest, and sleep?" This honestly stemmed up so much conversations between so many forums regarding women and thongs and how uncomfortable it is. And it all made me laugh really hard because I think when you actually put into perspective, when you try on certain clothes and they do get uncomfortable, A thong is a literal floss. And if it rubs wrong, it rubs wrong. But as a woman, a lot of the things that I've heard is beauty is pain. But I think that's a really skewed way to actually view beauty. Beauty shouldn't be pain. Beauty should be just beautiful. You make it painful when you make your expectations unreasonable.
Yeah, I think we can all understand and identify with wearing things that are uncomfortable if we want to do something to spice things up or whatnot. But having to request that someone does that at all times to make sure that your libido stays up for the duration of an entire day at their health expense makes zero sense to me. Definitely reprioritize the way you look at certain things in life, because that's not healthy.
Oh, definitely. Well, that was a pretty funny story. And we saw inconsideration from both angles, a man and a woman. Well, let's see if we can see inconsideration when it comes to family. For our next story, am I the a-hole for telling my parents the only way I will let them meet my son is if they give me their dog to put down? I do not in any way want to harm my parents' dog. When I left for university, I had to leave my dog behind with my parents. I was the last kid out of the house, and they liked their empty nest. To make sure it was super empty, they put down my dog. She was a 6-year-old Beagle Basset Cross in perfect health. I had rescued her. I got a job to pay for her food and vet. Before I left, I had quintuple checked with my parents that they were okay taking care of her while I was at school. They were not. They told me she got out of the yard and was hit by a car. I found out the truth from my brother, and I cut them out of my life. They killed my best friend. My friend from high school had offered to take her, but I didn't want to have her get attached and then have to fight to get my dog back. I honestly thought I could trust my parents. It's been 8 years since I talked to them. They were not invited to my wedding, and I do not attend family gatherings where they are. I have a 3-month-old son now with my husband. My brother and his family were over to meet him, and he asked if I'm ever going to forgive our parents. I said no. My mom contacted me and asked what it would take for me to forgive them and to let them meet their grandson. They have a French bulldog puppy. I said that if they give me their dog so I could have it put down, then I would forgive them. She said I was being ridiculous, and that was not going to happen. I told her she cares more about a dog than her family, which is what she always accuses me of. My brother says I'm being an a-hole, that they made a stupid mistake, but that it should be forgiven. I'm never going to get over it. Am I the a-hole?
Wow. All despacito. There's a deep betrayal that happens here. And if you have furry family members a part of your life, you instantly get this. Because she says that she had a dog that was 6 years old. She went off to college, thought she could trust her mom and dad. And they said that they would watch the dog. I guess, I don't know how much time had passed between them realizing they didn't want to and her going off to college, but they say that the dog gets hit by a car. And I guess this is what she knows until her brother let slip out of the bag that the parents just euthanized it.
Out of the blue, perfectly healthy.
For no reason.
Other than they just wanted to have the house to themselves.
I don't know how you can get to that level of heartlessness where you, as the parents, didn't even give the option to your daughter to find another situation for that dog that she clearly loved. Even if you don't love it, that's not an excuse for what they did. So I guess I would only say this because this one's a very easy one. I don't believe that our OP is the a-hole for how she feels. Like I said, that's a pretty bad betrayal. Her having the request of, well, give me your pet and then I'll do exactly what you did to mine. I hope that in her mind that that's just a thing to say, not a thing to mean, if that makes any sense.
It does.
And hopefully she knows at this stage of life that even if she had been told, fine, we'll do that, just let us back in your life, that she wouldn't have gone and done that. Because that will not make how you feel any better. That will only turn you into a more bitter person. And it sounds like because of what they did, it's already turning you into that, if that's your headspace. An eye for an eye does not make it right. But I do agree, though, you having put them on no contact was, in my mind, the right thing to have done. They don't deserve the right to be invited back into her life. Not with that little consideration towards your daughter and her dog. So I do feel bad for you, OP, but I would just suggest forgiveness has nothing to do with the other person. Forgiveness has everything to do with you. I'm not saying go out there and patch that up. What I'm saying is you need to learn how inner you has to find peace with what happened and move on, because it'll only make you more bitter. Again, I don't think that this OP means that. I just be careful, because we start becoming what we say. So in my opinion, OP, you are not the a-hole.
Well, the consensus on Reddit is our OP is definitely not the a-hole. In fact, many commenters said our OP has the right to have her grudge. In fact, they say that what the parents did is awful, inhumane. In fact, individuals said that our OP's brother is extremely wrong. This wasn't an accident. This was killing an animal on purpose for your small means, rather than reaching out and seeing if our OP could find other ways to go ahead and accommodate the situation. Now, I never thought that our OP was serious. In reality, I think she probably just said it truly out of spite.
Or maybe to just prove a point to her parents.
Yeah, there you go.
I hope that that's what that is.
I think it really is to prove a point. They actually say in the comment section to another person that asked, well, what would you do if your parents did agree and give you the dog? She said, I would keep the dog. Okay. And then they would go ahead and meet the son. The fact was that she wanted to prove a point, that their action was heartless. And now they don't want to do exactly what she had been the victim of, which is loss of an animal.
Then disregard everything I said before. She sounds like a very kind-hearted and very mature person.
I find it funny because a lot of comments tried to really skew up what she said. She actually put down one of the reasons why she put at the beginning, she does not want to harm her parents' dog in any way, but she did want to essentially teach her parents a valuable lesson. And now that they can't take the step towards fixing their relationship, even though they know they have to make a hard decision for it, goes to show their double standards.
Yep.
Well, let's go on to our very last story of the day and see what you think of this. Am I the a-hole for saying I will call social services if my sister-in-law keeps leaving her child at my place? I, 30 female, have a half-brother, Enzo, 40 male. We're not very close since we were both raised with our respective mothers, but he has always gone out of his way to help me with anything I've needed. Enzo married his wife, Steph, 33 female, 2 years ago. Steph has a daughter, Alice, 4, with her ex, but has sole custody, and Enzo and Steph have a 7-month-old son, Teddy. I also have a 3-year-old daughter. Enzo and Steph moved to the city I live in when Steph got pregnant, and since then, Steph developed a habit of showing up at my apartment building unannounced. It became a problem, and I talked to both her and Enzo about it, and she stopped until she gave birth. Now she regularly drops by unannounced to leave Alice at my building for babysitting while she has to run errands or something. She's had her carpool drop Alice off at my apartment before. My poor housekeeper is a wonderful woman who has had to deal with Alice arriving unexpectedly while I'm out, and I feel terrible about it. I've told the concierge not to let her up and to say no one is in, but then I'll arrive to Alice waiting in the lobby, which is not safe, and the concierge has told me I can't make them responsible for a child. Steph keeps saying she only does it when she's desperate, But I don't see how she can be that desperate to run errands at least twice a week. And frankly, I'm not a nanny. If she's desperate, she needs to hire some help. I've spoken to Enzo, and he is always extremely apologetic and says he will talk to her, and I believe he does. But he also works during the day and can't police where she is at all hours. I reached my breaking point a couple days ago when I returned from lunch to find Alice at home, having been dropped off since she had a half day at school. I apologized profusely to my housekeeper, who had spent time playing babysitter, and called Steph. No answer. I called her several times, and then Enzo, who was on a business trip and distraught over the situation. Steph eventually turned up a couple hours later, and I went ballistic. I said if she leaves Alice at my building again, I will call social services, and I will call them every single time she drops Alice off with me until they do something, because this is not my job, and she is an irresponsible and neglectful parent. She burst into tears and begged me to help out with Alice, but I said no and reminded her I never said yes in the first place. She just kept dumping her kid here. Steph kept trying to guilt trip me, but I was too exhausted and upset about the situation to be receptive, and eventually my husband had to tell her to leave. I feel bad because, as I said, Enzo has never been anything but the most accommodating person where I'm concerned, and maybe treating his wife like that was harsh, but at the same time, I chose to have one kid because I don't want another. Steph can't use my house as a daycare. Was I too harsh?
I'm all toasty inside. Not. This story is just about as garbage as a couple of the other ones you've read today. So, ROP says that she has a stepbrother or half-brother. And he's gone out of his way to make sure that he's accommodating and that they have that type of relationship.
Yes.
So you can see where ROP feels almost, as she says, guilty and almost maybe a little bit in onus to make sure that she is also accommodating. Now, there's always a limit, but the limit starts when all parties agree. There was never an agreement reached with our OP and her half-brother's wife to be this basically 2 times a week babysitter. I'm certain there's probably more, but at least we know on average 2 times a week, Steph, the sister-in-law, sends off her daughter to our OP's apartment.
I'm guessing it's in a sort of like a high-rise apartment. They're talking about a concierge.
Without any notice. She just arrives and there's a kid in the lobby. How irresponsible of a parent are you? Does she ever say to anyone what Steph does that outside of like running errands twice a week, does she work? Was there a big reason for this stuff?
No, I didn't catch anything on what she's doing. The only thing I caught when it comes to her Steph, when it comes to Steph going on her errands, is that she's always bringing Teddy with her.
Okay.
So it's very odd that she's not also bringing her other child with her.
Well, see, I can get behind like not having 2 kids and one, because I think it's a baby we're talking about, Teddy.
Correct.
Okay. I can get by not having both of them when you're going and running errands could be helpful. And I'm not privy to what their finances look like.
But I am. Actually, in the comments section, aside from our OP saying that they're fairly well off, she says based on Enzo having cars and his own home and everything else in their lives, she doesn't understand why it is that Steph hasn't gotten actual childcare.
Okay, so this kind of smacks of just being disrespectful then. If you're not willing to go and pay someone properly to watch your kid and you're just sending them in a carpool to be dropped off at a apartment complex lobby, you know how dangerous that is?
Ridiculously.
Just for the child.
Our OP does say in the comment section as well that they have a lot of people going in and out of their home. There's a reason why they have a housekeeper. And there are men that go inside of their home because her husband works from home. The fact that Steph would allow her 4-year-old daughter to just be in someone else's home, and you don't know who would be in and out of somebody else's home, knowing that there's a business. Our OP says she trusts who her husband has come in and out of the home when it comes to professionalism, but that doesn't mean that somebody else should be okay with it. Not if you haven't double checked it yourself.
Well, in my opinion, when it comes to this, the only a-holes I see here are Enzo and Steph. Because, see, he's at fault just as much as Steph is. You've talked to your half-brother. I know you've had conversations with him, and he still hasn't squared this situation away. To the point where now our OP is threatening that she'll call child services every single time that kid is dropped off. Because, yes, they're putting the child in harm's way for zero reason. You just told me it's not a financial problem here. So what problem is it?
Well, the consensus on Reddit is our OP is definitely not the a-hole. In fact, there were a lot of commenters that said it sounds like you needed to have this stern talking with her, that she needs to understand that there are consequences and that what she's doing is extremely wrong. There were some commenters to try and hit back and say, your housekeeper's the one that lets the kid in. But it goes ahead and it goes back to our OP saying her housekeeper is a housekeeper, not a babysitter. She's doing something that's beyond her job description, and that's not right. Aside from that, nobody's agreed to watch Alice at all. And that isn't fair for Alice. She needs to have a safe place to go to, a safe person that can take care of her. Now, I go back to the plain black and white of this. Our OP's sister-in-law, Steph, is abandoning her child. And that is extremely wrong. You don't know what could happen. Our OP tried calling the sister-in-law and there was no answer. What if something had horrendously happened to Alice? What if our OP never even saw Alice come in the building and the sister-in-law come in wanting to pick her up and our OP says, I don't know what you're talking about? What happens then? You put a 4-year-old's life in danger because of what? It's more convenient for a family member to watch a child rather than going ahead and doing the right thing, which is getting somebody to watch your child while you're doing other things. Everything screams of this as inconsiderate. I don't know if it's malicious or not, but regardless, in my mind, Steph is older than our OP. There should be no excuse whatsoever, especially when this was supposed to have been hashed out before this new child came into the picture. Child endangerment to me is a very big thing.
Playing roulette with people's lives isn't okay. Well, was that our last story?
That was our last story.
What a happy way to end up Friday.
Right into the weekend.
Well, as our stories come to a close, don't forget, you see in the world what you carry in your heart.
If you have enjoyed listening to us read and talk about today's stories, please rate, subscribe, and turn on notifications for new content. We regularly post on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. We would just like to say thank you to all of our patrons for your continued support.
Yes, we love and appreciate every single one of you. Well, listeners, I'll leave you with a new question. What made you smile today?
Aw, I can't wait to hear this.
Now, it doesn't have to be in the episode. We're just talking about in general.
Yes, it would be nice to hear all the nice things that happened.
And remember, if you post it, maybe we'll see it on the internet.
6:30, dinner with me. I can't cancel that again.
That's a good line.